Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Michanda Shines. Well, welcome back to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, and I hope everyone had a beautiful day on yesterday. It's the day after Christmas, so I'm giving you your podcast a day late, but it's still going to be a gift nonetheless. Yeah. So I wanted to have this guest on for a little while. We did a little skirt and dance at the beginning of the year, and recognizing that schedules are busy, it didn't work out. But I often say this on the podcast, that everything happens at the right time. And probably should kick myself for saying that, because even though this interview is happening today at this moment, there's some things that we go through in life that we don't understand the timing when it's happening. Then we live a little bit, more experience comes, and then we're like, this is why this happened. And to be honest, I don't really enjoy when things don't happen in a way in which I want them to happen. Whether that's a race, whether it's work, family. But I know I'm the better for it. And it just hit me when I said this, because I slid into this person's DMs and probably tracked them down. And finally, I was sitting on my couch on Sunday and like, I don't know how this last episode is going to go this season. The guest I thought I was going to have never responded. And I think they were nervous, right? And so I just said, wait a minute, I think I have this person's number. Let me just call. I was going to text, and then I was like, nah, let me call. And I did, and they answered. And so here we are. I feel like this is a Christmas gift for me, because God doesn't want me to fail, right? And I've committed to doing this podcast and providing a platform for everyone to have a voice. I don't just record and reach out to professionals. I don't just reach out to those who are in leadership at USA Triathlon, but I get the vantage point from everybody. And today, I get to talk to someone who you have seen them in some way, shape, form, or fashion in social media. If you follow any triathlon page, you've seen this person. They are a coach. They are passionate about wellness. They have a very unique way of including us in their journey into sport. Their journey into sport hasn't always been easy. And it's, in fact, the things that they've overcome in life has been very hard. But it proves that they can do hard things, and so can you. This person started his journey so that he could maintain a healthy lifestyle and overcome some challenges he was faced at the time. They have an infectious personality, and don't cross them, because if you come at them wrong, they will make sure you are on blast and they will handle you rightfully. No cap. Okay. With that said, I am super, what are all my words? Thrilled, excited, honored to have Mr. Noel Mulkey on the Try Beginner's Luck podcast. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, Noel. How you doing?
Hello, Michanda. Thank you for having me. That was an intro. I love that.
Well, I'm glad. That is one of my things. I want to make sure when people come on, they feel seen, loved, heard, and known. And I think the best way you can do that is by doing that. And so that's what I do.
I loved it. No, and also the part where you said I was cracking up, the part where you said don't come at me or something. I was like, you know what? Lately that's been like kind of true.
Let's talk about that. I feel, I've also interviewed Shantae, Latoya Shantae. Let me get her name because she likes to say the whole name.
Mm-hmm.
And she has that same challenge, right? And people feel like because they quote unquote know you from a social media perspective, that they get to say anything to you and slide into your DMs and be very disrespectful. How do you handle that? I mean, well, we know how you handle it, but how does that impact you? Well, how do you handle it? And how does it impact you?
Right. Yeah. So that's a really good question because it's actually gotten really over this last year in particular, 2025. What year is it? 2024. Over this year in particular, 2024. And I've noticed how on Instagram Reels specifically, it's taken off a lot of the hate has somehow just accumulated on Instagram Reels. I've been bigger on social media for like 4 years now after the pandemic, when I started on TikTok, and it was really good and supportive. But after I guess we're about to do 5 years of being on social media, like with a pretty significant following, I have noticed like I've kind of developed a whole second skin. Like nothing really phases me. But when it does phase me, I don't know. I feel like I've kind of put up a wall where like but there are those comments that like, man, that is like that you cannot say that. And I don't know. I feel like if someone says something just horrible, especially about my mom or my family, when I post about them, and then they have like, this is kind of, I guess, not exactly what you were asking, but if they have like their job in their profile, like I'll just put it on my story. Like, you should know this person is who this person is, like this person is who represents your business, and they say something super transphobic, super homophobic, super, I don't know, just awful. Like one of my comments was, this thing should become extinct, referring to me as the thing. And it was a realtor. It was a realtor in Canada. He has his whole bio he has his whole job in his bio. So I don't know. Maybe that wasn't exactly what you were asking. Is that what you were asking?
It was exactly what I was asking.
Okay, yeah.
And, I think that for people, there are some hurt people in this world who want to hurt others, right? Hurt people hurt others. But I noticed it a lot, to your point, this year, where you've had to kind of put people on blast. And although I haven't really been in your shoes to experience that, I just find it very hurtful and sad that people want to do that. And I've always thought like, well, how do you handle this? And I'm glad that you handle it. You mentioned something about people being homophobic and transphobic, and more so recently. Do you think that has anything to do with our country as a whole and how people are feeling more entitled to say what's on their minds based off of us not, as a country, nipping certain behaviors in the bud and holding people accountable without, again, this isn't a political podcast, so keeping that very straight, but just talking about the climate in general. Do you think that that's played a role in people attacking you a little bit more?
Absolutely. I think over the last, I think it's become so polarized. And yeah, we can keep, even besides politics out of it, it's become so polarized. Like the one side hates trans people or gay people or someone like me with a high voice. And it's a really big, if you go to a couple of my most recent posts, like the one I finished Ironman Hawaii, I'm sitting there with bleeding feet. But I say, like, I crack a joke. I'm like, hey, I chose the wrong shoes, but at least I finished. And there's 19,000 comments on that. A lot, I would say like 40% really positive, but then like 70% out of 19,000 comments. Just, what is this thing? Just really hateful, like, and it's interesting, Michanda, because I truly don't think these people would say it to my face in person, because I meet a lot of people all over the world, and no one's ever, people maybe taken aback by my voice. It is high for a man, but it's interesting because I swear they don't, no one says anything to me in person like this. It's all over the internet. And yes, I definitely think this speaks to where we're at as a country. It's become so normalized just to to belittle someone, to not be, well, it's become so normalized just to like, I'm going to take to hate on someone because I think they're somewhat different. And it's crazy because I share nothing. I don't share anything, but like, I'm going to share that I finished Ironman Hawaii for the second time. And it's crazy how people can overlook that and just go right to the voice, right to this, right to that. So yeah, yes, I do think that speaks to where we are as a country. Absolutely.
And you've gotten people together about your voice, because you can't control how you talk. You can't control the pitch of your voice. Like, that's the way, that's just your voice. You know, to be clear, I have a deeper voice for a woman. And I dare somebody, you know.
Exactly, you get it.
You know what I mean? Like, I dare. But no, we do have a lot of behind the scene video gangsters that won't probably say it in your face, but can try to say things behind your back. And that's unfortunate that the power of the keyboard is giving people confidence to say and do whatever they want to do. And I just hope that you continue to rise above it and continue to put people on blast, because I think it's true. If you are acting like this and you're showing your face and treating me some type of way, you need to be exposed. So keep exposing people and keep doing what you do. Speaking of, you said Ironman Hawaii, and I just want to clarify that, because it's just not any Ironman, it's World Championships Kona. So put some respect on your own.
I know.
On your own accomplishments, right? Because that's not an easy feat. So let's dive into your beginning story, right? Yeah. Because I think talking about your story and then coming back, that will take us to
where we're at,
the championships and where we are today, present day. Why triathlon? How'd you get into it? Give us all the deets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just real quick, I want to say like that, what we just talked about was kind of where we're at now, but obviously like this has come from years of me sharing my journey in triathlon. So my whole social media is basically triathlon and like what I've done in this sport. And so I started, I cannot believe it, but I think it is going to be on 10 years now. I started in 2015 because I had just freshly kicked a pretty severe heroin addiction. Actually, I had a very bad substance abuse problem all through my adolescence, and around 20 years old, because I'm now 30, so I think it was literally 20 years old, 10 years ago, was my last time I ever did heroin. I had gone to my second detox. I had been to rehab. I tried everything. Nothing was working. And what ended up happening was a lot happened, but I was done. I was at the end of my rope. I no longer enjoyed getting high. I no longer enjoyed getting, it wasn't like something, no matter how many people can tell you my parents can force me into a rehab, which they did. Truly don't think unless the person wants to stop, I truly don't think they will. Like, all the outside forces in the world can tell you to stop, but if you don't want to truly, it's not going to happen. And so I wanted it to happen. And then with getting sober comes, for me at least, with getting off of everything, I actually started gaining a ton of weight from eating so much. I was not doing drugs anymore. I was just eating. I wasn't working out. I was doing nothing but for myself. I had no kind of direction in life, zero direction. You know, I had been doing drugs for almost, all of high school, half of college. And I was like, I was sober, but it was like, just like, now what? Like, there's just, I couldn't think of a job. I couldn't think of anything. But this is what happened. I one day like looked at myself and I'm like, wow, I've never seen myself. My blinders were gone. I was not care. I understood like, okay, I'm sober, but I looked in the mirror and I'm just like big. I'm big. I gained a lot of weight. And I hate that that's like my kind of catalyst into getting into sports, but it kind of was. I used to travel. We used to go on all these family vacations, and like, the reason I say that is because I had this pair of jeans. This is so cliche. I had this pair of jeans, like my like travel jeans. I bungee jumped in them. I did a lot of stuff with these jeans, and I couldn't fit in them anymore. I could not fit in them anymore. And anyways, so I one day, I don't even know what came over with me. It was like cold. It was like 8 o'clock at night. I used to live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I literally just put on I don't even know, probably just sweatpants. I don't even think I had real running pants and shoes, and tried to run around the block. I could barely make it around the block without, I walked a little bit, ran some, walked a little bit, but I ran around the block, came back, loved it, absolutely loved it. I was like, and that's not, I know what running, I knew what running felt like. I had run here and there, like in gym class, but I just loved it. I was like, wow. I don't know. It was just it was what literally the stereotypical runner's high. I don't know. I just was like, wow, that's amazing. And then the next morning went on another run. And then I kind of I went from doing nothing to running like 50, 60-mile weeks, which is horrible. Anyone listening to this, please don't do that. And I also went like, don't do that. I had no base. And this is actually kind of how triathlon starts because of this. But I was running 50, 60-mile weeks. I did lose a bunch of weight. I started eating very healthy. And my parents actually, my mom was a triathlete back in the day. My dad was an ultra runner. Yeah, my mom actually won a half Ironman. And so this is her story to share, but if you ever want her on.
Why you didn't tell mom to come on? We could have made it a family affair.
We could have made it. I absolutely would love, maybe one day you can talk to her, because she has a whole story too. She qualified for Kona when she won back in it was a half Ironman, but this is back in like the 19, I don't know. I don't want to be wrong about that. But anyway, she won the triathlon and the man got the man who won got a free trip to Kona, free. But she got the woman who won, they said that the winner was going to get a free trip to Kona, but it was the overall winner. So the man got it. And my mom got some roses. And at the time, she was working in a bike shop. They couldn't afford $800. That, in hindsight, that's all it was. But back then, $800, they couldn't afford to go to Kona. And so anyways, they have a whole history. And so my mom couldn't go, and she's always wanted to go. So it has come full circle, because she never thought her son would go and do it, and she gets to watch. It's just, it's kind of cool. But anyways, beyond that, so my dad was like, you're running too much. You're going to get injured. And I guess in the back of my parents' mind was, okay, I have this new addiction. I go really hard into stuff. Like clearly, like I went from nothing, and they were thinking like, if I get a stress fracture, if I roll something, that I'm going to go back to drugs. They were very worried that I'm going to like mess up something and go back to doing drugs, which wasn't the case. But my dad suggested, hey, maybe instead of just running, go to the pool, do some biking. He had a road bike. He had a Cervelo road bike, which is actually a pretty nice road bike that I would use. And anyways, I started biking. I had swam 1 year in middle school, so I kind of knew this, but when I got a gym membership and went back to the pool, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually kind of like, my body somehow kind of remembers this a little bit. And so I would go to the pool every afternoon and swim 1 mile. In the morning, I would run 1 hour. In the afternoon, I would swim 1 mile. And then one time, my dad, so at the time, this is 10 years ago, my dad he's a doctor. He was a doctor, and he had a sports physiology lab at his clinic with this guy. Maybe shout out to David Brennan if you're listening to this. Maybe that'd be really cool if you listen to this. But he helped me kind of like go from like exercising to lose weight, and just like to, oh, maybe you can be an athlete, because he had me do all these physiological tests. It was so new to me, such a different world. You know, I was like in this sports physiology lab, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like how I was just like, I remember having like an out of body experience. Like I'm running on a treadmill with a mask, you know what a VO2 max test is? Yeah. And I was like, I can't believe how is this my life now? Anyways, I remember that very vividly. And I actually scored really well on the VO2 max test. And he was like, wow, you have some potential in endurance sports, something like that. Because I had a very high score for someone who didn't do any intervals, who has no base. And he's like, you can raise this. I think he said you can like raise this 10 points over the course of a lifetime, which is really, really cool. Anyways, and so that being said, he kind of suggested, then like I was biking, swimming, and I was running, and the kind of all formed into like, maybe we should do a triathlon. And it turns out it was like the end of spring when this was all kind of happening. And like a month later, there was it was the Guthrie first capital triathlon, tiny little town in Guthrie, Oklahoma, 90 minutes from us. And we signed up for it. I'll let you, do you want me to keep going or?
I don't want to, you're on a roll. I love when guests just come on and take over.
Okay.
Like that's a dream. So this is a dream. And I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, oh.
I don't know if you wanted to like interject or have any questions or because.
Well, I do have lots of questions.
Yeah.
So your dad is this doctor. You have access to a sports physiology lab.
Lab.
You realize you got this potential. And so I'm assuming the next progression is you go out and you win your first triathlon because you're like great and didn't know that you had this ability within you. And I think, okay, so I love learning the depths of people's stories, right? Like hearing that your mom was a triathlete, hearing that your dad was a long distance ultra runner, because you really come from an endurance family, right? And
yep.
Not everyone has access to that.
Yeah.
Not everyone has. And so some people may see that you just popped on the scene in 2020, even though you've been doing this for 10 years, not knowing your history and how what your mother couldn't do, you were able to pass the baton and allow them to go with you to Kona. So this is why I'm so glad I'm curious because I love finding out about people and hearing how the intersectionalities of their lives really impact who they become.
Yeah, I love that you also brought that up about how, so like that was one thing I actually, I think about this a lot actually, because when I first started in triathlon, so we're about to get to it, the first capital, it's called the first capital triathlon. Guthrie is like the first capital of Oklahoma. Now it's Oklahoma City anyway. So, but before we get to that, I think about this a lot. What you just said is because I actually did have resources. I had my parents' knowledge. My mom and dad knew all about triathlon. They're like, my dad was an ultra runner, but he did do triathlons. My mom has won a half Ironman. And she was like saying, she was like, they knew about the little simple things like transition belts. Like, and I was thinking back in the day, like, I see how overwhelming this sport is. Even if you're like, I'm going to do a triathlon, there's just so many moving parts. And like, that was one of my goals, actually, when I first started social media. Well, when I first started documenting triathlon with social media, we can that'll be getting into TikTok is a whole thing. But I was thinking like, that was one of my things, is to make it more accessible. I absolutely love this sport, but it's so complicated and it's so expensive. And like my parents really had I had a leg up because they told me like, when you first get into that water on your first triathlon, it's scary getting into a big old lake with like a bunch of people. My mom was saying, a lot of people panic. Don't panic. She's like, that's a very panicky feeling. And I'm like, is it? And she's like, yeah, like breathe, like just breathe. And she's right. It's a very weird feeling getting into a big old lake right before the gun goes off with a bunch of people. And now I almost feel like that's second nature, but like, I did have resources. And now I know, like, with someone who's like, oh my gosh, because I get told a lot that I was the reason people wanted to do triathlon in DMs and stuff, which is really cool. That's a whole other subject, but I still am like, I cannot believe someone's saying that to me. I just cannot believe that. And I think back and I'm like, and they, some of their questions are like, how do you find a bike? And I'm like, it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, this is what do you do? Like, and I think triathlon's such a cool sport, but it is so hard to get into it. And anyway, sorry, my point was like, yeah, I did have some help with this, getting into it, my parents. And so you said you predicted that I won my first one. Not quite. And we can start that if you want me to get into that, or
let's do it. Let's do it. So tell us about it. Like you have the parents to tell you not to freak out getting in the water, whereas most people are like, it was scary. I floated on my back. I did the breaststroke. I did all these things. So tell us about your first race, the swim. What was it like on the bike? What was it like on the run and crossing that finish line for the first time?
Yeah, so it was, and I actually had, and actually after this triathlon, I did it like 3 more times over the course of the time I live in Oklahoma. But so it was called Guthrie Triathlon, First Capital Triathlon. This little town, Guthrie, Oklahoma. It has a little lake. In Oklahoma, lakes are like, this lake in particular, it's just, we call it duck poop soup. It's what they call it. It's just a gross, you think some lakes are, it's just a little old nasty lake, but it's Oklahoma. Anyway, so we drove out there we drove out there the night before. And I remember I was doing the sprint. I think most people do a sprint for their first one. Actually, that's not true. I've met a lot of people. That's not true at all.
Not at all.
Which is crazy too. I can't imagine knowing how I did that, my first one. I can't imagine people's first triathlon being an Ironman or something. That's crazy. But anyways, so I did this. It was a sprint. So the Olympic distance went off first. And I remember thinking oh, they have to do that twice. And I was like, they have to do, I can't imagine that. I was actually, so we got into the water. I don't remember, it's 10 years ago, but I do remember when the gun went off, I swam. So we got into the water. I swam all out. It was a sprint distance, like 500 meters. And I won the swim. I was first out of the water. And at the time, I didn't wear a tri-suit. I think I just wore like some swim jammers from Speedo, like just a jammer like this, and not a tri-suit. I did the whole thing, no shirt, like the bike, no shirt. But I was first out of the water for the sprint distance, ran into transition. And the transition isn't huge. It's a small triathlon. It's just like 2 rows. But I got into transition and I could not find my bike. Could not find it. It was my dad's gray bike. It was like gray. And so I was in there for like 7 minutes, kind of running back and forth. It's very, I'm winning. I have like my head's not screwed on tight. I'm just like going, where's my bike? Screaming like at my dad, where is it? Where is it? And everyone's coming out of the water and leaving transition, passing me. I went from like first to like, I don't know, 40th or something, and trying to get, everyone's leaving. And I found it. I found the bike. And that was one of my biggest, sometimes people are like, what's your biggest if you've been asked, what's your biggest triathlon tip? And I always say, know where your bike is in transition. That's like number one, because that's one of those mistakes that you never make again. You never make that again. I was like, I could have been like 7 minutes ahead, and I lost it all for right there. So anyways, so I found the bike, did the bike course. I remember it being just so hard. It was like in Oklahoma, in the middle of July. It's like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 80% humidity. It's like a little swamp. It's brutal. I remember the bike being, I'm on the bike. I was like, this is like really cool. Like, what a cool way to spend your day. I remember thinking that too. I was like, this is like really cool. Like, I'm racing on a bike. I just remember being like, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? It's just so new. It's so exciting. I'm so like into like, anyways. Okay. So I did the bike. I don't remember much of the bike, but I do remember this. I remember getting off after the bike and going onto the run. That little 3-mile run was the hardest thing I've ever done. I never knew how hard it would feel to run off a bike. And that is some sensation, isn't it? That is when you first do it, it's just like, it's like everything feels so awkward. And at the time, I don't know if I was drinking enough water. I probably didn't drink anything the whole sprint distance, or I wasn't taking electrolytes. I didn't know any of this. And I was just running, and it was the hardest thing ever. I remember how hard that run was. And then finishing, I don't know. I think I came in third overall. But then I remember, so we finished, and then I remember watching, and the Olympic distance people still had to go do another lap. And I was like sitting there dying, and I was like, I can't believe those people have to go do another lap. I was like, how are they doing the Olympic distance? And to me, I couldn't fathom that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So we did the triathlon, and actually, this is crazy. On the way back from the triathlon, you know how I said I was sober, I quit everything. I was still, the only thing I hadn't quit after my first triathlon ever, I still was a cigarette smoker. Just for the so I'll never forget this. This is actually like one of the second to last times I ever had a cigarette too. It was like on the way back from the triathlon, I had just done it. I had was like feeling like a new life almost. Like I'm like completely like I'm hooked. I love this. And we were at the gas station, and I was like, I I want a cigarette, but my dad's like, you want a cigarette now? And I was like, and he's a doctor. He hates cigarettes. He hates cigarettes more than he hates cigarettes. I mean, he hates that more than alcohol, more than obesity. Like he does not like, he just hates them. And I was like, and so he's like, he's like, you really want one? I was like, I don't, but I do. Anyways, I had one a few months, like a month later, I went on a big trip and was done with cigarettes. And the reason I bring that part up is because it was just like after my first triathlon, like I don't know, I just think that's kind of like the where my life kind of switched. Like that was like you did the triathlon, you had, and it just kind of, we're done with that. I'm leaving that in the past. And I don't know, that was a weird, I always bring that story up because it's just kind of where my life kind of just, and then I did it. That was the first triathlon. And then like 2 or 3 months later, I did an Olympic for the first time. But that's kind of the story. And then, it took off. I became hooked. I'm obsessed. But yeah, that's kind of the first. Oh, sorry, real quick, back up to, so one thing I thought was amazing too was the community. I was like, wow. I was like, everyone, like that race morning, everyone in transition, like everyone's so nervous, but everyone's talkative, and like everyone's so nice, and like you could just be talking to a complete stranger and we're just like talking about, I don't know. I just thought that was also something that I really wanted to point out was like, I think one of the reasons I was hooked is how good I felt afterwards. I was like, I can't believe I just did that. But also because I met like 100 new people that morning, like people who have so many different, like, wow, there's like a whole different world of like, instead of a bunch of like old high school people who still do drugs, there's like a whole new world of like people who get up and run in the morning. Like that's a thing. And anyways, that's kind of how, yeah.
No, I've enjoyed listening to your story because there's so many different nuggets that we could truly go down. I mean, yeah. You said that your parents taught you, well, were able to tell you some tricks, but they didn't probably, from what I heard from your story, this is your mouth, not mine. I'm just summating up, or that's not even a word, but I'm summarizing what you said essentially is that you probably didn't drink the whole race. So hydration is a key part.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so you're right. Yeah.
They told you not to be afraid of the water, but didn't tell you hey, you need electrolytes. So just because our parents are a part of the sport, we may not get all the tools and resources, or perhaps we may not be listening because, we as youth.
Oh yeah.
We have our own.
Well, absolutely. I still had a massive learning curve. I've made every single mistake in the book, despite having some like guidance. Right. I still made every single mistake.
Yeah. And, not finding your bike in transition, that is big because you could have won. And I was kind of right. You podiumed. So I wasn't far I wasn't far off the win, just 2 places off the overall win.
And to this day, I think I would have won had I found the bike, because that was almost like 7 minutes. So yeah.
So note to whomever is listening, if you have access to go get that VO2 test in the sports physiology lab, do it, because you never know where the possibilities can go and where it may open doors for you. Because no, really, triathlon has opened doors I don't know if you knew would be open for you. And if it hadn't been for the pandemic, where everyone was zoning in on things and just trying to find some reprieve, the pandemic did you good. It was a solid for you.
It did. I will say the pandemic actually changed my life for the better. It obviously changed tons of people's lives for the worse, but I will say it did kind of be the catalyst to me getting a big following because because of TikTok. And that's where I kind of started documenting. I never thought people would care, Michanda. I never thought people would care. Like, I think I don't know if you care about this part, I don't know
about everything.
Sorry. I don't know. So the story about social media and bringing triathlon into my social media was, I think during the pandemic, it was something like 300 million users joined TikTok. Now we're like 3 weeks away from possibly TikTok being banned, but comes full circle. But back in 2020, I think I posted like a few stupid videos that did okay on TikTok, but had nothing to do with me. And then one day I posted, let's go. It was it was me getting ready for my first full distance Ironman Florida. It was the only Ironman they did in 2020 in Florida, of course. And I wasn't even
the low key shade. That was shade. No, what did we say at the beginning? That was
I know,
shade.
my bad. You can cut that out.
No, I won't.
Okay,
that was good.
Okay. But no, so I posted like, come with like a little mini vlog, come with me on a 100-mile bike ride. And to me, I thought it wasn't that like big a deal, but I woke up and the post had like 500,000 likes in like the first 12 hours and like over 3 million views in like the first 12 hours because people were so fascinated. They're like, did you say 100 miles? I was like, yeah, I was like 100 miles. They're like, we don't even drive that far. And I was like, yeah, and I was shocked. I was like, oh, people actually thought this was interesting, triathlon, because I had been doing it now. It was almost second nature now. And I was like, oh, people like this. And then I posted like a day in my life of training for Ironman Florida. Like I did like a 4,000-yard swim and like an 8-mile run and some weights. And they're like, anyways, so that's kind of where my TikTok took off, really triathlon centered. And that's anyway. So I got into triathlon, had no idea social media would be a big part of that. And now I was able the last few years, I didn't know what's going to happen next year with who knows, but the last few years, I was very lucky with the pandemic in terms of getting a big following that's allowed me to pretty much train full time and do social media full time. And I will say that's probably because of timing, getting a big following from being on TikTok and then showing the world what I think is a super fascinating way of life, which is swim, bike, run. It's such a cool way to live. So
it really is a cool way to live. And I have this note that I write down because I'm constantly taking notes and I love to learn from other people. I'm fascinated by people and I love to learn. And I was like, Noel encouraged me. And I will say, as a full figure woman in sport, I've often been ashamed of showcasing me being in sport because the kits don't fit right. It makes us look like as I said on the Feisty Media podcast earlier this year, a stuffed sausage. It's not.
I want to go listen to that. I want to listen to your episode.
I'll send you the link.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. And so I felt like a stuffed sausage, or just uncomfortable and unflattering. And I really wish that people will make more flattering kits because there's a way, I feel like there's a company that does it really well and I enjoy wearing their kits, but there still could be more and there still can be just renditions. I remember I used to be a fit model for Spanx. And when Spanx was still kind of getting up and they had fit models, which is probably why they were so successful because we were able to give them real live feedback on the models, like on what are the first renditions of it called?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Like when Nike sends out their beta?
The prototypes.
Prototypes, yes.
Yes. So, and those prototypes, low key, I used for almost 10 years because they were that great.
Really? The ones that aren't even on sale?
Exactly. They weren't on sale. They were just cut from the fabric. But I remember using some of those Spanx prototypes, the swimsuits when they would come out. just all of the products. And to me, that showed me, one, the quality of the product and how invested they were in their clientele. And so, and even as an announcer, I'm a Black full figure woman who's an announcer, get half the opportunities as other people, but I got to be twice, probably 15 times as better. You know what I mean? And I'm like, nervous about putting myself out there about that too, because I'm like, dang, am I seen as doing too much if I promote myself in this way? And I don't want to do that because I want my skill and my ability to speak for me.
Yeah.
But perhaps I have to in order to not be denied opportunities, because I believe I'm good and I know how I can make people feel. But I'm like, dang, so you've encouraged me. And I just want to say that once I come off of my social media fast in January, I will be posting more about my story, because I think,
oh yeah,
the people who you can reach, I can't reach, and the people I can reach, you can't reach. But together, we can really come and show these people what a beautiful sport this is, create it and make it more diverse, which allows it to have longer longevity. Because the more different the people who participate in the sport, the further the reach, which means perhaps, yeah, we can get the NCAA money. We can get opportunities because people are exposed to it. And a lot of times it's just about exposing people to a sport and being quote unquote confident, which I can't say I was always confident in sharing that.
Can I ask you, because from my perspective, I think triathlon, how do I say this? I don't think, obviously pretty much everyone knows, I don't think it's diverse at all, triathlon. It's a very white sport, extremely white. But what I want to say is, do you think that all body types in triathlon, that when I'm at an Ironman or something, a full distance Ironman or a big one, on a big triathlon, I see all body types. I see people that are bigger, smaller, people you would never expect. But my question is, from your perspective, do you feel like it's not diversified at all in terms of because I've seen people I've seen people from all types of body types do these. I'm just thinking of back in Joplin, a lot of my friends, there was a whole group. There's a whole group of plus size women who all, I don't know. I just want to know do you think it's diverse? Because I don't think it's very diverse in terms of does that make sense?
Okay, so you had two thoughts. So you said, one, you don't think it's diverse, but two, you see all body types at the races. I think two things can be true. They're very true. Yes, it's not a very diverse sport, but there are outliers.
Yeah.
Who are at the races, who believe in their ability to go long.
That was it. That's a way better way to put it. There are, I feel like at races, I always see what you called the outliers. I do see that. And I feel like it's almost I'm so I hate that people would think that I hate that when people would think they can, they show up and just because of what they may look like or how they sound, they have no confidence, which I think, not no confidence, but they are already I think what's cool about triathlon, the community, is I do feel like it's very embracive. I felt that way, but I also can't speak to how you felt with it. I'm trying to basically what's an example of a race you went to and you felt everyone's very welcoming. And because when I first got into it, I felt I told you, that was my first thing I said about the community was in Guthrie. I felt
triathlon is very welcoming.
Yeah.
Depending on the race.
Yeah.
And who's the director of the race.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right? I think just like with anything, the race takes on the personality of those who are putting it on. If they want it to be a family atmosphere, it will. If they want it to be focused on competitive and being more competitive than welcoming, it will. There are race directors out here who do it amazingly well. And there are race directors who don't do it very well. Now, in terms of being welcomed, that's a very multifaceted question.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very layered and complex question to to really dive into. And from a person of size like myself, I think a lot of that, one, rooted is in who I am and being comfortable in my own skin. Right. So that's one. So coming from that vantage point and then building that confidence to be like, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to let it all hang out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I told my coach this year, I said, this is the first year, and I've been doing the sport for about 10 years, that I didn't care about my size and didn't allow my size to impact what I did. This is the first year.
The first year. Can I ask what changed? What, like, just growth? Just.
I think so. I think like the healing journey. I think just being at a place where self-love, being in a place where I'm like, I'm just as good as the next person. And probably I don't give up attitude because I'm at the point where I'm seeing mediocrity rise. And I'm like, wait a minute, if they can do blank and make it, and I am doing the most and still stuck, why do I care about X, Y, and Z? So for me, I think it was this self-confidence of having people around me, like, you know, Maria Simone, who drops the F-bomb all the time, being in my corner, telling me how good about, man, F that, you got this, do it. You know, my coach, Lloyd Henry, who never once said, you have to lose weight in order to do this. And I've done every distance. The longer distances, I've had more challenges to overcome. Like I did Maryland in 2021, and
was that the year with the flood or
the jellyfish?
Okay, so 1 year it was super, like, didn't it like flood the run course or something?
Year.
That was this year. Okay.
And in Maryland is always that tricky race.
Okay.
But I got so sick because of the jellyfish. I didn't know I was going to have an allergic reaction, but I didn't quit. No. You know, and I kept going, but finished in 17-17, and I felt so horrible. And I was like, so I did all of this and for it not to count, but according to the rules, that's the rules. However, the first finisher finished in like 19 hours, but just because he was one of the originators, it doesn't disqualify him. And so mentally working through that, like, well, maybe, which I had lost like maybe 60 pounds that year.
Wow.
And then after that, I went into quote unquote, a little bit of a depression state because I also had lost my brother. So that coupled, and I was like, Dad, 17 minutes kept me from this quote unquote pinnacle. Tried again, another issue. And then recently in California, in the swim, I didn't realize that cold water can impact you. And I took in some water that went the wrong way and couldn't breathe, essentially.
Was this Indian Wells or the full?
This was the full in Sacramento.
Ironman. Oh, okay.
So these are things that happened not because of my ability, but just random.
Oh man, we can get into that.
So that's why I said at the beginning, the timing. Like, just because I've had the timing wasn't for me, it doesn't mean that it wasn't the right time. Does that make sense? And so
absolutely,
just because things happen and we may be believing God, and in my case, like, I love God, I believe God, but it doesn't mean that this isn't for us. It just means the timing of it. That's why I don't always love the timing of things, because it doesn't have a say about your ability, but it's just, you can't control the things that you can't control. And in these situations, I couldn't control them, but mentally, I was like, well, damn, is it because of my weight? Is it because of this? And I'm like, no, because I am stronger than a lot of people, but I am the only person that I can compare myself with. And I felt like this year I improved in so many areas. This interview isn't about me, FYI, but
no, I absolutely love hearing this. Well,
areas like running, I've hated running. And this year I saw so many gains in my run. I saw so many gains in my bike, and I'm a swimmer, and saw so many like just improvements in swimming. And so I just felt like this year was like, you've done all this work. You've improved so much. This was the goal. Yeah. The goal was to improve you, and to know that it doesn't have anything to do with anything else. And perhaps using this to have a catalyst for women who might be in a larger body, who want to do these things and are scared. And so I've been not one, I have this adversity to social media. I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, maybe I have to
You need
lean
to.
into that.
You have a cause. You have a cause. You are a voice in triathlon for people who probably are underrepresented, who are underrepresented. So unfortunately, social media like sucks a lot of life out of you. It drains you. I get horrible but it's also a tool. If you believe in what your message is, which I do, you believe it, you got to use it. Yeah. I mean, it's just if someone sees you crossing an Ironman finish line, who cares if it was 17:17? If someone sees you and it's like, hey, she can do it. I want to talk to her and ask, how did she do this? I think that's super important. And about what you just said about kind of overcoming stuff that wasn't in the game plan, wasn't in the game plan. That's like my entire year this year. I've had two bone stress hip injuries this year. And that have almost made me be like, what is the point of this? This is so stupid. Why am I even doing this still? One after the other. I'm currently not running right now because of my hip injury. And the timing, exactly. It's like the 1 year I fought for 2 years to get back to Kona. I got to it. And the 1 year Kona is when I have a hip injury and can't train. I did it still, but I just think that's like what you just said about overcoming random stuff, like really weird, like your bike breaking on the way that's like what triathlon is. And I think like you can draw on all of those experiences. Like I remember back after doing, I was kind of sort of in school still. And I remember like comparing like, oh, I've done an Ironman. Like I can do this. Like this math test isn't that hard. Like I've suffered through an Ironman. Like, I don't know. I just getting into something like this trickles down to all aspects of your life. Yeah. And I think that's like, I mean, you've done, like you said, you've just done a lot. And I feel like now you feel confident. It's made you like into the person, like you've overcome freezing cold water and like, you know, like really, really like horrible, like really weird stuff happens in Ironman, like bleeding
weird
feet
stuff. It's like, why does the weird stuff come out on Ironman? Like, did Ironman not pray before they discovered their brand? Like, what in the heck is this about?
Exactly.
But what I appreciate about the distance, and whether it's an Ironman branded distance or it's a long course in some other brands, because Ironman is a brand, it's you know, doesn't cover the gamut of the entire industry. I will say it truly prepares you for life.
Yeah.
And how to handle situations when they come. Like whether you're in a difficult job situation, you're like, well, hell, I done went out here and did 112 miles. I done ran 26 and swam 2.4. I
can suffer.
Can deal with this.
Yeah, like this is nothing.
It's nothing. Or, you know, you're going through a rough patch with family and, you know, family dynamics change, you know, things can happen and you're like, okay, I just got to keep going and just, you know, believe that this will be what it's going to be. And so I think when you get to the longer distances, it really does mimic life.
Absolutely.
And honestly, I feel like the shorter distances do. You know, sometimes we are in a sprint for life where we feel like our chest, you know, our hearts are and lungs are beating out of our chest because that's what you do in a sprint. You go fast and you have to go. And at each distance, there's different techniques to get through that distance. And I think the ones who do it well, obviously focus on one distance or two distances.
Yeah.
But you realize what's good for you, you know, and I think I don't want to scare anyone from doing triathlons or doing long distance. I think
that's the opposite.
Right. Just know that the more that you grow in the sport and you grow in doing the distances, different challenges arise. Lean into that because those challenges really do help you with other areas of life. I think that's what I wanted to say.
I mean, absolutely. Like everything about this sport trickles down. Like, I just feel like you can't be. And then also like, it is also besides all that, like the physical aspect in terms of like your mental health, like, or like you can't be, I don't know. I'm never super sad after I just went on a run. Like it just changes your mood, your life. It just ultimately
it does.
You get so much more blood in your brain all day long after an exercise. And I always I always think the best medicine on earth is exercise. That's my kind of my, but yeah. And so like, I hope that everything I'll ever shared on social media uh, is like, wow, I hope I'm not special. I've done nothing. I'm not special at all. And I feel like people who are way more talented, I hope they find something they like, are passionate about. Mine was triathlon, and I think it's also a super big gift to find something you love so much, and then able to do it every day. I hope my body can keep going. This year it's been telling me like back off, and I did. But anyways,
I do want you to know you are special.
thank you.
We are all special, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I mean, but I think you sharing your story puts you in a very vulnerable place, right? You have to have guts to share your story, and guts to be able to receive, like, quote unquote, the vitriol that you do when you are vulnerable in sharing, when your family does come on and share. And so that takes confidence, it takes boldness. And I just want to admire and admonish you and just keep going, because you've inspired me. You know, there's some key missing pieces, and one of those is probably leaning into social media and just not caring about what people say. Like, but that's my story, and maybe it's a part of, hey, stop caring about what people say. Either they're gonna like you or they don't, and if they don't, that's their business. Who cares?
Yeah, and
who cares?
That's something. It comes with time. You can't just like, I feel like you can't just turn that off. It just comes. And I have gotten to the point kind of this year, like, I don't care. I don't care at all. Like, whatever you can say. But I feel like that's definitely like I think you have to just kind of like, you can't just like tell yourself, I don't care. Because deep down you can still care. Like it's just something you kind of grow into, like, after, so.
You grow into it. You do. And I think the cultivation process of the last 14, well, it'll be 14 years on January 1st that I moved to Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
Has been about growing and cultivating and being uncomfortable. And so, you know, I think this is one of those last pieces, because I've had to care about what people said, you know, as a model and modeling on national television, and people constantly critiquing you for how you look, and, oh, your hair doesn't look the right way today, or, you know what, you've gained 5 pounds, you got to figure this out, you're being set, like, all those things causes you to care. But the training this year, I think, conditioned my mind.
Yeah.
And that's honestly that was the best gift. Like, that was the best gift. So I think that's training changes you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the end goal, which, the medal is the shiny thing.
Yeah.
But the journey, that's where the magic happens.
I feel like you just like, you learn so much about yourself when you're suffering for like 3 hours on a bike. That's like really hard. I don't know. And then you're like I bike a lot by myself, and I'm like 50 miles out. I'm hungry. I'm tired. And I have to come 50 miles home. And like, I just feel like you learn a lot about yourself. And then you talk to someone who maybe is being, you know, who on Instagram is saying something mean. I'm like, I don't know if they fathomed what I just did. And now I just like, you learn so much about yourself that you can draw confidence.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like people who exercise, and like, I feel like that's another reason a lot of triathletes are somewhat, what is the word? Not insufferable, but a lot of triathletes are
indestructible.
Like they're just like they're very A-type, hard-headed. But I think it's because of so much time is spent in your head suffering, and like you have to. Okay, we're putting a lot of money, effort, time into this, and once you've accomplished a goal like that, it's like y'all can't talk about anything. Like what do you have on me? You know, like.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like we've just become old friends real quick.
It's
just like so vibing. But no, it is. And so all that to say, try. And whatever you can take from Noel's story, my story, take it and make it your own, because you never know. You stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something very different could help change the trajectory of your life It could change the destiny of your family. It could change generational curses. It could promote generational wealth. You never know how what you do when you take a chance on the thing that you've never thought that you could do, how it could change your life. And so I say that to say, this year in this season, we talked a lot about rest and recovery. And again, sometimes out of my own learnings, the foam roller, we've had a love-hate relationship. I love the foam roller because the foam roller gets out and gets the fascia to release so that you have greater capacity to do more. And had I not had that learning lesson, we wouldn't have had that over the underbelly of this season. So Noel Mulkey, what do you say about rest and recovery, and how can you encourage someone to take it seriously?
Well, I feel like this is pretty cliche. I'm sure everyone's heard it, but this is so cliche. Now, I didn't make this up, but you get your strength, you gain the strength, you get the gains from working out, not during it, but from the recovery of it. Like after you lift weights, that's not what's doing it. It's the resting part. After a really hard run, that didn't make you fitter. The resting did. So, and I have learned firsthand this year in particular of how important rest is, and just not doing too much. And I think one thing about, if it's specifically referring to triathletes or actually all athletes, I feel like when you have that athlete, when you're like in it and you have a goal, and it's so easy not to, well, I don't want to rest today. My the guy I want to maybe beat, he ain't resting today. I don't know. It's just something like, it's definitely a learning curve to resting, because this is a big learning curve. Because I think I remember a long time, my old coach, his name is Matt Hansen. He's a pro triathlete. And he's, you know who Matt Hansen is? Yeah.
So yes, because yes.
Okay.
He's another person I want on the podcast, but yes, okay. Matt Hansen.
Yeah. So he was my coach for 4 years. And I bring that up because he's I don't want to get this wrong. He has a very, is he a doctorate? He has a very high degree in, I wonder if I think he's a PhD. Yeah, he has a PhD in sports medicine or something. But he used to tell me like I always asked him, Matt, why do you have a coach? You're like, pretty much, you've done this for like 15 years, you know what gets you fit. And he said the reason he has a coach is to keep him from doing too much, because he's like, literally, because the coach will tell me, go rest, go recover. Like, there's 0 point to going on another run, another bike in this build. And I was like, that's a really good point, because I don't know if I could, I've tried not being coached, and it doesn't work for me. I need some sort of guidance. And I think half of that is because I think a lot of pro triathletes who know kind of what gets them fit, I think they do that because they need to be reined in, they need to be held back, they need to go rest and recover. It's that part's also a major learning curve. So, and I have done it completely wrong this year. So I don't know if I have much advice on that part. But
you were leading up to tell us, and you've done it completely well. He was like, no, I've done it wrong.
No, this year I learned exactly what not to do. I've been in 2 MRI machines this year, and so I definitely, moving forward, I've learned, gosh, go sleep, eat enough. This is your goal is important, but you also want to have, like, for me, I was told I want to have working hips when I'm 50. So so chill out. Yeah.
Because hips are important. They're the driving force of everything that we do as athletes. The hips are important. No, this has been so great.
Yeah, this was fun.
I'm just really, one, honored, and two, just really grateful. 2025, like, we have a few more days before 2025. What are some of the things you would like to accomplish in 2025?
This is a big goal. And every time I say a big goal and say it out loud or put it on social media or something seems to I don't know. I feel like it's bad luck, but I'm going to say it. I want to win or be very close to the win at Ironman Japan in September. That's my triathlon goal because I've signed up for Ironman Japan. It's not a pro race. And the reason I say that, when it's not a pro race, and I am an age grouper gets to hold the tape. They get to break the banner. And my dream before I quit triathlon is to win an Ironman and hold the banner. Because if it's a pro race, you know how the pros get, but if it's an age group only race and Ironman Japan is age group only, that's kind of a superficial goal. But I also want to, if that's what you, but that's like triathlon. But I also want to grow my podcast, and I kind of want to, I don't know, I would like to. There's other goals, but that's a big one. That's in September.
I'm feeling some type of way when you say quit triathlon. So quit triathlon when you're 100. Is that what you mean? Like,
yeah, like
okay, just making sure.
No, I'm in it. I'm hooked. I don't think I can even this year with how bad it got with like me being frustrated. I still is like, I can't imagine doing anything else. Okay. But I think, yes, when I retire from triathlon at 100 years old, I want to have an Ironman win. And
that's it. Just making sure we're on the same plane.
Oh yeah, no, okay. Not anytime soon. It's September 14th. So September 14th is my big goal. Can I ask your big goal? Or what's your goal? I know it's about me, but I am curious. What's your 2025 goal?
Oh God. That's a very good question.
Have you not gotten that far? Have you thought of it?
I've gotten to half the year.
Okay.
So half the year goal, my half year goal is by May to do another standalone marathon. I have
which one?
To be determined.
Okay.
To be determined. I have a couple of them on the list that I just have to make sure, like logistically, it will.
Right.
But I will bring people along for the journey. I did my first marathon in 2015.
Okay.
So this will be the 10-year of my first marathon.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And since I've only done one standalone, I've done a few tacked on.
I've never done a standalone. Yeah.
But a standalone. So I will be doing the standalone in May of this year, and so I'm really excited because I fell back in love with running this year and want to explore what I can do and get some speed up, and really enjoy it for the long haul again.
Yeah.
So that's my big half year goal that I can share.
That's well, I totally agree with you, by the way, about running. It's so hard. It's such a love-hate. Like I'm a swimmer also naturally. And then I'm a fish out of water. I can swim. Running has been the biggest hurdle for the last 10 years. Running, such a love. I love it. I hate when I can't do it, but then I'm like, I totally feel you on running. I'm such a non-runner.
But I had so many positive gains this year with running. And I was like, I really want to explore that. And my coach and we had a conversation about, when we get to June, I will still be doing biking and swimming as a part of recovery. And then we'll decide, because I'll still be trained to do any race I want to do, and we'll decide what triathlon goals we'll do long-term from there. But I am signing up for a birthday, and you're on the East Coast, and this could be good training for you.
Yeah.
I will invite you offline because, they ain't paying me to say what race I'm going to do. But I will be doing a birthday race and having a birthday party at a race. And would love to invite you offline.
Okay.
All
absolutely.
Right? So you guys hear me inviting him. I will give him the details. And then, of course, I will include you later. All right. I don't want this to be too long because I want people to come back to the podcast. And I think I'll have you back on for sure, because I think we have so much that we really didn't uncover, because we had that little point where you got sidetracked and got curious about me and asked me my questions.
Which is fine. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the flow of this podcast. We have one other form of business, and that's rapid fire. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Get ready. All right. We'll start with something easy. Favorite song?
Song right now is TGIF by Glorilla. I love her. Yes. It's Friday, 7 p.m.
It's 7 p.m.
Friday. Love her.
Yes. She is making she's a whole vibe.
She is.
Year.
I love her.
All right. So that took me out of my character. I'm like, this is
I don't know if you
rapid,
expected
Michanda.
that.
I was not expecting that. I was judgmentally expecting something very differently. I was like,
Taylor Swift.
probably. Taylor Swift isn't a bad thing, but I can own it. What is your favorite leg of the distance now?
I want to say running. When it happens well. I've done 12 Ironmans and I feel like I've only run to my potential once. So, but during that was like, if I can recreate that every time, like that one run, it was a 3:10 marathon in Western Australia. Absolutely one of the best days of my life. I was like, because of that run, because it's so hard to nail it for me. So when I nail it, it's not the most enjoyable, but I have to say it's my favorite. I just think it's such a, it's just so hard. Running's hard. So when you overcome it and when you do it well, like to the potential you thought you could do, there's literally no better feeling. So
love it. Post race or post workout favorite food?
Ooh, man, it's so cliche also, but just pasta. I'm such a pasta person. I love any type of pasta. I love pasta.
Coke or Pepsi?
Oh, Coke.
I just wanted to make sure because I'm a Southern. I'm like, what? No. Morning or evening workouts?
Oh, morning. Totally morning.
Who would be your dream training partner, alive or historical?
Oh, that's a really good one. I would absolutely love to train with. Ooh, that's a really hard one. Sarah True.
Mm-hmm.
She's just I've actually met her once in Arkansas at a race. She just seems so, I like her. I follow her career. She's just fun. I love her. So I would love to do a bike ride with her.
Let me be clear. I don't know Sarah True, but I've heard of Sarah. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But
she just seems tough. I know she's obviously tough. She's won Ironmans, but she's tough and she just seems so grounded. And I just think she's a cool person. So that would be a really cool training partner.
Okay. High cadence cycling or grinding it out with a lower cadence?
Oh, low cadence.
Oh, okay.
I do like that. Yeah.
Okay. You like the grind.
I like big low cadence work. I do like that a lot.
Okay. Pool or open water?
Open water. 100%.
Gel or real food for race day nutrition?
Gel? Oh, gel. I said gel. Gel or real food?
Gels.
I guess gel. Yeah, gels and sports nutrition, unfortunately. But yeah. Okay. It works the best on me.
T1 or T2? Which is more challenging for you?
Which is more challenging? Oh my gosh, T2.
T2?
Yeah. Because it's the kind of the glooming, all right, here's the part that you are about to hurt on. And T2. It's when it's all kind of, yeah.
And before we let anyone go off, we ask this question: do you pee on the bike or get off and take a proper pee break?
Pee on the bike. My record is 6 on an Ironman. It's way too hydrated. Actually, way overhydrated. It was at Ironman Switzerland 6 times. So I feel like you can't stop that many times. I think you just go on the bike.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Noel. I appreciate you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Y'all, we did it.
We
have done season 4. This is our second half of season 4 that I get to end today with Noel. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for riding with us. Thank you for allowing us to continue to bring you good interview and good stories. Thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. For those of you who are over on YouTube, thank you for following us. There's this saying in the wisdom of it all: don't despise small beginnings. This podcast was birthed out of a necessity of using my voice to let others be able to amplify their voice. And I say thank you. I hope that you have a great holiday season as we go into the new year. Happy New Year. Whatever it is that you do, remember to try. Because whenever you try beginner's luck, you truly always win. with that said, be sure to like, share, follow the podcast, listen, share with your friends. It's a perfect time to listen throughout the holidays. We've had some incredible guests on. And just know we're taking a little bit of a break in January, but we will be back for the end of January. So the 29th, I think that's the date. That's when we will start season 5. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. My name is Michanda Miles, also known as Michanda Shines. And guess what? We're out. Peace. Bye, everybody. See you in 2025.
Thank you for tuning in and listening to this episode. We need your help so we can continue to try at TBL. So for more information on where you can find and subscribe to this podcast, visit www.trybeginnersluck.com. And don't forget, whenever you try Beginner's Luck, you always win.